It started when Lucy moved into the old Victorian house. She had always been drawn to eerie, Gothic architecture, and the house, long abandoned, had a certain charm she couldn't resist. It was cheap, too, almost suspiciously so. But she brushed it off, eager to make it her own. The first night was calm, but the second was when the whispers began. At first, she thought it was the wind. As she lay in bed, barely drifting off, she heard something faint, like a murmur under her breath. She sat up, wide-eyed, straining her ears to catch it again. Silence. She forced a laugh.
"Just my imagination," she whispered to herself. The third night was different. The whispers were louder, almost distinct, guttural, like several voices speaking all at once, too low to understand but loud enough to unsettle her. It seemed to come from the walls.
"Lucy."
A faint voice broke the blend of murmurs, almost a soft hiss. Her heart raced, and her skin prickled with fear.
"Lucy."
The voice repeated, closer this time, like it was coming from the wall just behind her head. She froze. Had someone broken in? No. She was certain it came from inside the walls. Panic gripped her as she fumbled for her phone to turn on the flashlight. The beam of light flickered across the room, revealing nothing unusual. She got out of bed, holding her breath as she pressed her ear against the wall. There it was again.
"Lucy. We've been waiting
for you."
The voice repeated, closer this time, like it was coming from the wall just behind her head. She froze. Had someone broken in? No. She was certain it came from inside the walls. Panic gripped her as she fumbled for her phone to turn on the flashlight. The beam of light flickered across the room, revealing nothing unusual. She got out of bed, holding her breath as she pressed her ear against the wall. There it was again. She jumped back, heart pounding. The voice was clearer now, unmistakable. But that wasn't possible. No one was in the house, no one but her. She grabbed a chair and began pounding the wall, desperate to find a logical explanation. Hollow thuds echoed back. And then, the wall cracked. Slowly, the crack snaked across the plaster, revealing a hidden door, small and barely visible until now. Her hands trembled as she grasped the handle. It was cold, much colder than anything in the room. Without thinking, she pulled it open. A long, narrow passage led down into darkness, the air inside heavy and stale, reeking of decay. She hesitated. But something, perhaps that same voice in her head, urged her forward. She descended the stairs. The deeper she went, the louder the whispers became, no longer confined to words, but moans, wails, and what sounded like frantic breathing. At the bottom of the stairs was a room. Inside, the walls were covered in strange, ancient symbols. In the middle of the room, an old mirror, cracked and dirty, stood on a pedestal. As Lucy approached, she saw her reflection, pale, wide-eyed, and terrified. But then her reflection blinked. Lucy gasped. She hadn't blinked. Her reflection was staring back at her. The whispers crescendoed, forming an unintelligible chant. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Her reflection smiled, an eerie, twisted grin that didn't belong to her. Suddenly, her reflection began crawling out of the mirror, its bones cracking and stretching as it twisted into a grotesque form. Her mouth opened to scream, but the only sound that came out was the chorus of voices she had been hearing, hundreds of them, all at once, filling the room. The creature that once was her reflection stood tall in front of her, its eyes black voids, its mouth unnaturally wide, still grinning that horrible grin. It reached out, its fingers long and clawed, brushing against her cheek.
"Join us,"
it whispered, though its mouth didn't move. Lucy's body convulsed as the air around her grew icy. She felt her skin crawl, her breath hitch, and then she screamed, but no sound came out, only more whispers. The last thing Lucy saw before everything went dark was her own reflection, smiling back at her as the creature dragged her into the mirror. In the silence of the house, the mirror cracked once more, sealing her fate.